Hello everyone, welcome to HRC Games. Today we're going to be talking about Old School Tactical Volume 2 that is published by Flying Pig Games and created by Shayne Logan. This is the second edition of this game. It is a tactical level game featuring the United States forces versus the German forces on the Western Front. So we'll start by going over what's in the box and then we'll talk a little bit about my impressions of this game. So first in the box is the rulebook. It's obviously colored, it's well laid out. I'll show you some pictures as we kind of talk about things. The interesting thing I found about this game is the way the rules are written. So I come more from an advanced squad leader background where the rules are dense to say the least. And some of the rule sets in that game are incredibly well laid out and very clear. There are other parts of the rule book that are not as clear or easily to digest, so they can become a little bit difficult. The other difference that I've noticed in Advanced Squad Leader is that the rules are written out primarily in paragraph form. So you have to read a fairly long paragraph and then there's a sentence in the middle of the paragraph that might make sense. Now that's not a dig on ASL. Like I said, I love that game. I've played that game for years and years and years. But sometimes the rules can be a little bit frustrating. What I noticed immediately when I opened this rule book was that the rules are really written in bullet point form. At first I thought, well, that's going to be a little bit strange and maybe a little bit hard for me to digest. However, I found that as I was reading through it, it actually makes more sense to me, and maybe that's just the way my brain works, but the point-by-point iteration of the rules makes it very easy to find what I'm looking for and to also reference them in a quick manner. So it actually turned out to where I really like that format a little bit better than I like the way the ASL rules are written. Now, there's a little bit of difference too. I think the ASL game is quite a bit more complex. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. And this game is a little bit more streamlined and on point, which can be really helpful. Now, it could also be that these rules make a lot of sense to me written out in bullet point form because I spent so many years reading ASL rules, and so this kind of is not the same system, but a lot of the logic that goes behind movements and cover and firing and opportunity fire and those kinds of things all kind of line up, so it's easy to digest these set of rules. However, with that being said, I do really like the way these rules are laid out in the rule book. The rulebook also has lots of good color pictures like most modern rulebooks do, some really good examples that kind of walk you through things, so I found it very easy to digest. I had a couple problems with some of the rules when I was first reading through, like for example the bocage rules, nowhere near the complexity or problems that you would have if you're reading bocage rules in ASL, but some of it was just a little bit unclear. I read through it a couple more times, felt like I had a pretty good handle on it. And then I asked a question on the Facebook group, and it turns out I was interpreting the rules right. So that was really kind of the only major part that I found that was a little bit confusing. And even that, as far as confusion is concerned, was still really quick to resolve. And in a game like this, when you've got terrain, you've got lines of sight, you've got movement, and all those different types of things, some of the rules are going to be naturally a little bit confusing. So it's not unusual. But overall, I found the rulebook to be really helpful. There are also some really good examples in this rulebook. So if a situation is a little bit more complex, there's usually an example to follow along through it, or follow along with it, so it becomes less complicated and a little bit easier to understand. Now, I haven't used all of the variations of the units yet in this game, so I can't speak to things like the tank rules and maybe the air rules as well. Although I have a feeling that if they go along with the rest of the way that the rules are explained, it should be fine. Again, I'm really impressed with this rulebook. When I saw this game online and I was looking at Flying Pig Games, I've ordered a couple other games from there as well that I also liked quite a bit. I thought, well, maybe this is going to be a little bit of an alternative to ASL, a little bit more streamlined or just a little bit different take on that theater. And I've been pleasantly surprised. I think the game system works really well. So, I really like the rulebook. Well done. You also get a scenario book. I haven't played a ton of these games yet. I've only played Scenario 1, so this is a very, don't have a lot of experience with the system, so this isn't an in-depth review or anything. Maybe after a while I'll post a playthrough. The scenarios are got some variations to them, which is good. The first one starts off very simple to get you used to the mechanics of the game. I always find that to be pretty helpful. I don't think it's a big enough scenario where you can evaluate the entire system, right? Does the whole system flow well? Does it work well? I don't think I'm quite there yet, but from what I've seen so far, I think it plays really well. Scenario 1's a lot of fun. There are 16 scenarios in all, if I remember right. Just flip through here real quick. I'll show you a couple pictures as we're going along. There are 16 scenarios in the rule book, and I mean in the scenario book, and then there are also 2 solitaire games as well. I'm going to try these out next to see how they work, just to get a flavor for how the solitaire mechanism works. I think this game works pretty well, solitaire anyway, right? Like you can just make the best move possible, and then, you know, make the next best move possible. A lot of people play these types of games that way, and I think it works fairly well. But I'm interested to see what these solitaire missions do as well. Well done. I haven't played enough of them yet to know if they're all balanced. Kind of as a side note, I don't even know if that's necessarily the most important thing when you're playing these games. I like to see the scenario set up. I like to see what they're encountering, and I like to play through the mechanics of it to kind of see if it resolves its way the way it historically did. So naturally, some of them aren't going to be balanced. Other people really like their games to be, all their scenarios to be very, very well balanced so that each side has an equal chance of winning. I don't know if that's an issue with this game yet or not. Like for me, I don't even know if it's all that important. I just enjoy playing the game. So, or if maybe in the future there'll be a way or a publication of some sort, maybe on their website, that would say, all right, this scenario is a little bit unbalanced because of the historical nature of the scenario. Here are a couple of things that you can do with just to make the game more even for, you know, as far as playability is concerned. I don't know if that's in their future or not. I don't even know if it's necessary, but I haven't played enough of the games to know if that's the case or not. You also get 2 copies of this charts. On the one side is the infantry combat table and the vehicle combat table. Through my playthrough through this so far, very easy to use, very easy to find the results. The modifiers make sense, the cover rules make sense, all that falls right in line with my expectations as far as a good squad level game. The one thing that I did find interesting, and I kind of like this a lot, is that each individual unit has its own ability to seek cover, right? So they have their own defensive value. So in ASL, you only get terrain benefits, or, you know, like if you're in a building, it's, you know, it's +3, or if you're in a stone building, if you're in a wooden building, it's +2. If you're, you know, in the woods, it's +2. And there's that element in this game too, which makes total sense. But then they also give each unit the ability to create kind of their own cover, right? So they have their own defensive abilities. So if you're in, you know, a light building, you get +1. Plus you get maybe if your defensive value for your unit is 4, then that makes 5. I think that's a really unique kind of twist, or at least from ASL to this game, and I really like that because it kind of shows the value of that squad or that unit in and of itself to be able to protect itself. So, I was continually forgetting to add that in when I was doing my rolls. So many people were dying left and right, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I was like, oh, well, this makes sense. I'm forgetting the most important part of the cover rules. But again, I really like that. I thought it was a really good mechanism for that game as well. And then on the back of this, you have the train chart, so it's nice and handy. So you always have it available for you to use. All right, next we have the counters. I'll show you some pictures of those up close because I've already punched out some because I've played the first scenario. Counters are really well made. They're large, which I kind of like. They're pre-rounded, so you don't have to go through and clip them all. Very easy to read. The print is large. This is me telling you that I'm old and like big numbers on counters. But they're easy to use, well made, thick and sturdy, just like you would want from any of your games. Really well done. Also in this game that I think is really kind of cool, and a nice little bonus, are the American and German, I call them data cards, I don't know what their actual name is, but they have all the stats and the abilities of each of the units in them. I find that to be pretty helpful as far as remembering what their abilities are. Like, I don't need them to know what, you know, their firing range are, or what their defensive capabilities are. All that's on the counter, very easy to read. You don't need to look at these cards for that. But it is kind of nice to have something that's quick and handy to, you know, have just laid out on the side for all the units you're using to tell you what their abilities are, so you're not forgetting to maximize what each card or each unit's ability is. And, you know, so like here's the Panzerschreck. It's got some cool stuff on there. It's got its own to-hit table. It's got its abilities there. And the same is true for all the tanks and all the guns that are present in the game. I think that's awesome. For ASL, a buddy of mine, Chris Edwards, went through and developed his own set of cards for all the vehicles in the entire system. It's a huge, I mean, if you print them all out, it's like this tall. Those were awesome as well. But it's really nice to see that this comes with the game. It's just kind of an added layer, I think, of, you know, of a benefit that you get in a well put together box. All right, the other thing you get too are some luck cards. These are, each side gets one, and you can play it at any time during the game. They do various things. I'm not sure how big of an impact these have on the game yet. Like I said, I haven't played enough scenarios to know, but it's definitely a unique approach in relation to ASL anyway, about how sometimes just random things can occur, and I like that quite a bit. There's also the map. I'll show you pictures of those as we go through. As you can see at the table, it's really big. You don't use most of it. In most of the scenarios, you cordon them off, right? So you'll only use like a small section of the map, which is kind of cool because you don't have to worry about everything, and you can kind of minimize your footprint that you're playing with. Now, I happen to be fortunate enough to have a huge table that I can lay the whole thing out, which is really nice. A couple of things about the map. Artwork is great, easy to read, lays flat. It's really well constructed. This is just an amazing map. I really like it a lot. A couple of cool things about it is along the sides over here, I'll put the picture up as I'm pointing to it too. You have reminders of what the defensive values are for each of the types of terrain. Love that. You don't even have to look at your chart. It's right on the map. I think that's awesome. You also have impulse points on both sides of the map, so you can keep track of how many impulse points each side have used. You also, over here on this side, and I'll show a picture of that too, you have the enemy casualties, the victory points. Everything is available right here on the map. So there's a lot on the map that allows you not to have to look through the rules or even use those handy charts that they've published with the game as well. So I think that's a great kind of addition to this map. Lots of stuff on the map that helps you play the game in, you know, in a more efficient manner as well. So map, extremely well done. So this game relies on impulse movements. I haven't played a ton of games with a bunch of impulse movements. Like I said, most of mine are your more traditional hex and counter kind of games, and the grand strategy games, those types of things. And then the tactical level games like Squad Leader. So this impulse movement system, I really like. You roll each turn to see how many impulse points each side has, and then you can kind of figure out where your moves are going to be. One of my favorite things about ASL is the defensive fire phase. So you can fire at moving units as they move, which adds a little bit of realism to the game. This game also has that in the impulse. You can fire at the units as long as they're moving. You can take fire from the other side. I think that's a really important concept to a game that kind of, you know, helps you stay involved in the game. It's also more realistic. One of the things that I don't like about some games, let's take Warhammer, for example. I know that's way out of this realm, but what you do is you sit there and you pretty much watch the other side move and fire and do their entire turn, and you get to do nothing except maybe roll some dice as they fire at you. But it can get a little bit to where you're like, all right, I don't even really have to pay attention. Let's look at all the results. So I like games that when it's the other side's actual turn, that you still get to participate in that process. So the opportunity fire or the defensive fire, like in ASL, is a really important factor for me in those games. That it's also more realistic. This game does that very well as well. So overall, I think this is a really top-notch production as far as the game is concerned. All the components are really well done. The rules are well written. There's also living rules on the website, so as things change, as things, you know, are updated, you can always print those off and get the latest version of the rules. I found that the scenario that I did play was a lot of fun. It was a good introduction to the game as well. I like the system. I like the impulse movement. I like the give and take as you move. You know, you don't know if this unit's going to be able to continue along its path, if it gets broken or shaken. So I really like this system a lot. I'm looking forward to playing it even more. And I think that this is one of those games where I'll take the time to put together a video that shows, you know, a whole playthrough. So if you're on the fence about this, like maybe if you're an ASL player, or maybe if you're just not sure if you want to get into strategic level games, I think this is a really good opportunity for you to get everything you need in one box and to get started playing that squad level, tactical level game. I think you'll really enjoy it. Maybe in the future as well, after I've played this a few more times and kind of got my brain completely wrapped around the system, you know, all the elements of the system, I'd like to go through and kind of do an ASL versus old school tactical, just to kind of highlight some of the differences, some of the benefits, and maybe drawbacks of each of the systems. And I can already tell that this is going to be a really good system. that I'm going to really enjoy it. So when I say versus, I don't really mean, you know, like one's good and one's bad, but kind of the differences. And if you like X about games, maybe you'd like this about ASL a little bit better. Or if you like, you know, Y about games, maybe you'd like old school tactical a little bit better. I'm kind of thinking that in my mind, I'm going to like them both. You know, I already love ASL, and I think I'm going to love the system too. So I don't think there's any reason why you can't do both. But it might be kind of nice to do that kind of compare and contrast between the two differing systems. That's all we have for today. So thanks for your time. Please hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.